The man who leaves calmly is untouchable. He owns his peace, his choices, his freedom. No shouting, no chasing, no drama can bind him. Trying to control him only reveals your own weakness. Respect his silence, honor his exit. Some souls cannot be caged, only understood. Calmness is often misunderstood. People see silence and composure and assume it is passivity, that it is weakness, that it is surrender. But the truth is far from that. True calmness is not the absence of fire. It is the mastery of it. It is the ability to stand still when the world wants you to move, to breathe deeply when chaos screams in your ears, to hold yourself steady when emotions try to pull you under. It is strength hidden in patience, power wrapped in silence. When someone remains calm in the face of provocation, they are not naive. They are not soft. They are conscious, aware of their value, and unwilling to sacrifice it for temporary reactions. A calm person is rooted in themselves. Storms can rage around them, but they are anchored, unmoved by the noise, unshaken by the drama. Calmness is also the ultimate weapon. When others try to manipulate, to provoke, to push buttons, the calm response disarms them. It makes them question their own motives, their own control. There is power in not reacting immediately, in pausing before speaking, in thinking before responding. Impulsive reactions are often mistakes dressed in emotion. Calmness allows clarity, clarity allows control, and control allows freedom. The man who can remain composed when tension rises is often the one silently leading the situation. They are not doing it to dominate others. They are doing it to master themselves. To hold on to calm is to hold on to dignity. To choose composure over chaos is to choose yourself over the illusion of external validation. Calmness is not learned overnight. It is forged in experience, in failure, in heartbreak, in moments when the world pushes and pulls in every direction. It is cultivated by observing the consequences of reaction and choosing stillness instead. It is choosing to respond instead of reacting, to act from awareness instead of anger, to move with intention rather than impulse. In a world where people are rewarded for being loud, for overreacting, for making their presence felt in the loudest way, remaining calm is revolutionary. It signals confidence. It signals wisdom. It signals a refusal to be controlled by external chaos. Being calm also sets a standard. It teaches those around you about boundaries without shouting, about strength without force, about dignity without demand. It inspires respect, not fear. It shows that life does not need to be a constant battle of proving oneself. Calmness creates space for thought, for strategy, for insight. It is a quiet, invisible shield, a silent force that often moves more mountains than anger ever could. When people mistake calmness for weakness, they fail to understand that true strength does not need to announce itself. It simply is. It endures, it persists, and it outlasts every storm. Detachment is often misunderstood as coldness, indifference, or even cruelty. People see someone stepping back and assume they no longer care, that they are distant or emotionally unavailable. But detachment is not about shutting your heart off. It is about protecting it. It is about knowing where your lines are, what you will accept, and what you will not. Detachment is the act of standing firm in your own value, without allowing others to blur it with their demands, insecurities, or manipulations. It is the silent way of saying, this is where I end and you begin, without raising your voice, without creating drama, without needing anyone to understand or approve. When you detach, you reclaim yourself. You step away from people who drain you, from situations that pull you into chaos, from expectations that are not yours to carry. Detachment allows you to see clearly what belongs to you and what does not. It is a form of self-respect, a way of saying, I am responsible for myself, but I am not responsible for controlling you or fixing you. In a world that often confuses love with possession, detachment is revolutionary. It is a boundary set not to punish, but to preserve your peace. It is a reminder that your energy is finite and sacred, and it cannot be surrendered to every argument, every conflict, every demand of validation. Detachment does not mean absence of feeling. It does not mean that you no longer care or that you no longer love. It means that you care for yourself enough to maintain clarity. It means you can love someone without losing yourself in their chaos. You can be present without being trapped, kind without being exploited, connected without being consumed. Boundaries created through detachment are not walls. They are a protective embrace around your heart. They allow you to exist fully in your truth without being hijacked by the fears, insecurities, or expectations of others. Detachment also teaches others about you without confrontation. People learn where your limits are not because you yelled them, but because your choices quietly enforce them. You show them that your time, your peace, and your self-respect are not negotiable. You become unshakable because your boundaries are defined internally, not externally. No guilt, no shame, no manipulation can move them because they are rooted in awareness, not fear. It is in detachment that your true strength becomes visible, not as a loud declaration, but as a calm, undeniable force. Detachment is liberation. It frees you from the need to control, from the pressure to please, from the weight of unnecessary responsibility for others' choices. It is a way of saying with quiet certainty that you are enough, that you will not compromise your peace, and that you honor yourself more than you fear others' reactions. It is a gift to yourself, a declaration that your soul deserves clarity and that your life will no longer be dictated by the chaos of others. Through detachment, boundaries are revealed, and in those boundaries, your freedom lives. Control is a word that we cling to as if it were safety itself. We want to control situations, people, outcomes, and even emotions as if the world were something we could bend to our will. But the truth is that control is an illusion. It is a comforting story we tell ourselves to feel secure, to feel powerful, to feel that the chaos outside can be tamed. In reality, life is never so neat. People will act unpredictably, circumstances will shift without warning, and emotions, both yours and others, cannot be dictated. Trying to control what is uncontrollable is not strength, it is surrender to fear. The desire to control is often rooted in insecurity, in a need to prove that we are necessary, indispensable, or capable of shaping everything around us. But the more you try to hold, the more you tighten your grip, the more you invite frustration, resentment, and disappointment. When you understand that control is an illusion, you start to see freedom differently. You realize that your power does not come from bending others to your will, but from mastering yourself. True power is knowing what you can influence and what you must let go. It is learning to act intentionally without attachment to the outcome and to respond with awareness rather than panic or force. You cannot control others' choices, their feelings, or their loyalty. You cannot control time, fate, or the countless variables that shape life. But you can control your reaction, your boundaries, your decisions, and your integrity. That is where your strength lies, not in trying to imprison the world in your hands, but in holding yourself steady within it. Trying to control others is exhausting. It breeds tension, conflict, and regret. It leaves you constantly on edge, waiting for someone to act differently, to meet your expectations, to prove their allegiance. But when you let go of control, you step into clarity. You see situations as they are, people as they are, and life as it is, unpredictable, imperfect, and beautiful in its uncertainty. You stop trying to force outcomes and start allowing experiences to unfold naturally. This doesn't mean passivity or surrender. It means conscious engagement. It means acting when action is needed and stepping back when it is not. It means understanding that your energy is precious and cannot be wasted on illusions of authority over what will never be yours to command. Accepting that control is an illusion transforms relationships, work, and personal growth. You stop manipulating, convincing, or chasing approval. You stop trying to fix what is not yours to fix. You stop taking responsibility for others' choices or emotions. Instead, you focus on your own path, your own peace, and your own progress. In that space, life becomes lighter, decisions become clearer, and your presence becomes magnetic. Not because you dominate, but because you are free. The illusion of control fades, and in its place rises a quiet strength, a calm confidence, and an unwavering trust in yourself and in the flow of life. Silence is often mistaken for weakness, for indecision, for a lack of courage. People think that if you do not argue, if you do not shout, if you do not fight back, you are giving in, surrendering, or letting them win. But silence is a different kind of strength. It is deliberate. It is conscious. It is choosing not to be a participant in unnecessary chaos, choosing not to hand your energy over to anger, frustration, or manipulation. When you remain silent in the face of confrontation, you are not retreating, you are rising above. You are refusing to be dragged into a battle that serves no purpose other than to satisfy someone else's need for control. The person who speaks less often in conflict, who listens instead of reacting, and who responds with thoughtfulness rather than emotion, carries a power that words cannot always convey. Silence forces reflection. Silence forces others to confront themselves. Words can be ignored, debated, twisted, or dismissed, but the quiet observation of someone who refuses to react is impossible to ignore. It makes people uncomfortable because it is unexpected. It reveals confidence, clarity, and inner authority. Silence communicates that you are in control of yourself, that you are not dependent on validation or approval, and that your peace cannot be negotiated. It is a form of communication more honest than any argument because it requires no embellishment, no performance, no need to convince. Confrontation often escalates emotions and fuels chaos. Words once spoken in anger cannot be taken back. They are weapons that hurt, divide, and leave scars, not just for the other person, but for yourself. Silence, on the other hand, creates space. Space to think, space to observe, space to maintain dignity, space to act strategically rather than react impulsively. It allows you to preserve your energy while others expend theirs in the futile attempt to provoke you. A silent person cannot be controlled because they refuse to respond on someone else's terms. They dictate their own terms simply by not engaging in unnecessary battle. Silence is not absence, it is presence. It is not weakness, it is mastery. It teaches lessons without teaching them intentionally. It influences without demanding influence. When you stop feeling the need to argue, to explain, to defend, you step into a higher level of power, one that cannot be challenged by anger, guilt, or manipulation. People begin to respect boundaries, not because you shout them, but because your quietude enforces them. They begin to understand that some battles are not worth fighting, that not every opinion deserves a response, and that control is never won through coercion, but through self-mastery. Choosing silence is a radical act of self-respect. It says to the world that you are not available for unnecessary conflict, that your energy is precious, and that your dignity is not negotiable. It demonstrates that strength does not need to announce itself, that power does not need to provoke fear, and that the person who can hold their tongue when everyone else is shouting is the one who commands true authority. Silence carries weight because it is intentional, it is strategic, and it reveals a depth that words rarely can. Leaving is never a sign of weakness, and it is never a confession of defeat. Too often, the world tells us that walking away is failure, that staying no matter the pain is proof of strength, that tolerance equals love and sacrifice equals commitment. But leaving is not giving up. Leaving is choosing yourself. Leaving is recognizing your worth and refusing to stay where you are undervalued, unseen, or disrespected. It is the act of courage that demands you honor your boundaries, your peace, and your dignity. To walk away with clarity is not an escape. It is a declaration of self-respect, a statement that your presence is not up for negotiation and that your energy is not to be drained. Leaving is a choice that reflects awareness, not impulsivity. It comes from the understanding that some chapters in life are meant to end, that some people cannot meet you where you are, and that some situations will never serve your growth. To leave is to act deliberately rather than react out of anger, frustration, or desperation. It is to assess the reality, weigh the consequences, and decide that what you gain from staying no longer outweighs what you lose. Many confuse leaving with abandonment, but leaving is not about rejection of others. It is about protection of yourself. It is about prioritizing your well-being over the illusion of control or the need to fix what is beyond repair. Leaving is also an act of clarity. It strips away the chaos, the confusion, the endless questions about why someone cannot change, why a situation feels stuck, why pain persists. When you leave, you step into honesty, not only with the world, but with yourself. You stop pretending that your energy and love can change things that are immutable. You stop blaming yourself for what is not your responsibility. You embrace the truth that some people, some places, some moments are not meant to remain in your life, and that recognizing this is not defeat, but liberation. Choosing to leave is also an act of courage because it requires confronting fear. Fear of being alone, fear of judgment, fear of uncertainty, fear of what the world will think. Leaving demands that you trust yourself and your path more than you fear the unknown. It teaches that strength is not measured by endurance of suffering, but by the wisdom to walk away when suffering no longer serves you. It demonstrates that dignity is more valuable than approval and that peace is worth more than attachment. Walking away transforms the narrative of your life. It shifts the focus from what you tolerate to what you deserve. It sets a standard for how you will be treated, what you will accept, and who you allow in your space. Leaving is not failure. It is choosing yourself over compromise, clarity over chaos, and growth over stagnation. It is proof that you are the author of your own story and that the ending is yours to write. Drama is loud. It is urgent. It demands attention, provokes emotion, and often leaves chaos in its wake. But behind the shouting, the manipulation, the constant need to be seen or heard, lies something quieter, something more vulnerable: fear. Drama is rarely about the moment itself. It is about what someone is afraid to face within themselves. It is a mirror of insecurity, a reflection of anxiety, a desperate attempt to control the uncontrollable. People create storms around themselves because they do not know how to navigate the calm. They seek validation, power, or reassurance through conflict, but beneath it all, fear is the true conductor, orchestrating the performance of chaos. Fear is uncomfortable, and people will do almost anything to avoid it. They will overreact, exaggerate, provoke, and dramatize in order to feel some sense of control over what they cannot predict or change. The more afraid they are of being exposed, rejected, or ignored, the louder the drama becomes. The arguments, the outbursts, the manipulation, it is all an armor, a shield that protects them from confronting their own insecurities. Recognizing this is essential because it shifts your perception of their actions. What seems like aggression or hostility is often vulnerability disguised. What seems like chaos is often a silent plea for safety, understanding, or acknowledgement. When you understand that drama is rooted in fear, you stop taking it personally. You stop being reactive to every outburst, every attempt to provoke, every demand for attention. You begin to see the patterns, the triggers, and the motives, and in that seeing, you find freedom. You no longer feel compelled to fix the situation, defend yourself, or prove your worth to someone caught in their own storm. You realize that their drama is not about you. It is about them. It is about their fears, their insecurities, their inability to manage their emotions with clarity. This understanding allows you to step back, to maintain your peace, and to respond with calmness rather than chaos. Drama fueled by fear also teaches a powerful lesson about boundaries. When someone reacts from fear, they often disregard respect, empathy, and reason. They push, demand, and manipulate to regain their sense of safety. Observing this exposes the limits of what you will tolerate, what you will accept, and what you will allow into your space. Detachment becomes not an act of coldness, but a measure of self-respect. You learn that peace cannot be negotiated with chaos, and that maintaining your dignity sometimes means stepping away from those who cannot manage their fear without creating turbulence around you. Understanding that drama is fear in disguise transforms how you relate to others and to yourself. It fosters compassion without compromise, clarity without confusion, and strength without aggression. You learn to observe rather than react, to protect yourself without resentment, and to navigate life with a calmness that fear cannot disrupt. When drama arises, you see it for what it truly is, not a personal attack, not a reflection of your worth, but a shadow cast by someone else's fear. And in that recognition, you find serenity, resilience, and freedom. Presence is a gift. Possession is an illusion. Many of us confuse the two, believing that love, loyalty, or connection can be secured through control, manipulation, or constant insistence. We think that if someone is ours, if we hold tightly enough, if we demand enough, then their presence is guaranteed. But life, people, and relationships do not work like that. Presence is a choice, a willingness to be where you belong, to show up authentically, and to invest willingly without being forced. Possession, on the other hand, is control masquerading as love. It is a desperate attempt to cage what cannot and should not be caged. To value presence over possession is to recognize freedom as the foundation of connection. It is to understand that true bonds are not built on chains, expectations, or demands, but on respect, trust, and choice. When someone is present in your life, they choose to be there, not because they have to, not because they are afraid of losing you, but because they want to. Their presence is intentional, authentic, and powerful. Possession, however, is rooted in fear. It wants to secure, to trap, to make permanent what is naturally fluid. Possession seeks control. Presence allows choice. One is liberating, the other suffocates. When you cling to possession, you invite tension, resentment, and dissatisfaction. You measure love by compliance and attention by proximity, and you mistake fear-driven loyalty for genuine connection. You try to force presence, but presence cannot be forced. It can only be freely given. The more you attempt to possess, the more people pull away, and the more your heart struggles to understand why something so desperately wanted seems to slip from your hands. The paradox is simple. The harder you try to hold on to someone, the less authentic their presence becomes. True connection cannot survive under the weight of coercion or demand. Presence requires patience, trust, and self-respect. It demands that you honor your own space and theirs. It recognizes that people who belong in your life will choose to stay, and those who do not cannot be persuaded. To embrace presence over possession is to let go of attachment to outcomes and to embrace the flow of relationships. It is to step into a place of confidence where your worth is not dependent on someone's decision to stay or leave, but on the value you know you bring to every interaction. It is to respect freedom, yours and theirs, while cultivating bonds that are strong because they are voluntary, not forced. Choosing presence over possession transforms the way you love, the way you lead, and the way you live. It teaches patience over impatience, understanding over judgment, and freedom over control. It allows relationships to breathe, to grow, and to exist in their truest form. Presence is life-giving. Possession is suffocating. Presence nourishes. Possession diminishes. When you understand the difference, you stop chasing what cannot be caught, stop controlling what cannot be tamed, and start appreciating the beauty of people who are there willingly, fully, and authentically. In that recognition, love becomes effortless, connection becomes natural, and peace becomes inevitable. Growth begins the moment we stop fighting reality. So often we resist what is, wishing things were different, longing for people to act differently, hoping situations would unfold in our favor. We cling to expectations, to ideals, to illusions of how life should be. And in doing so, we trap ourselves in frustration, disappointment, and stagnation. Acceptance is not about giving up. It is about seeing things clearly, without distortion, without judgment. It is acknowledging the truth of a situation, a person, or a moment, and making peace with it. Growth comes when we stop wasting energy trying to change what cannot be changed, and instead focus on what we can learn, how we can adapt, and who we can become. Acceptance is liberating. It allows us to release the weight of resistance and the burden of control. When we accept that some people will not meet our expectations, some relationships will end, and some dreams may shift, we free ourselves from suffering that comes from trying to force life to bend to our will. Acceptance does not mean resignation. It does not mean indifference. It means clarity. It means understanding the difference between influence and control, between what is ours to shape and what is beyond our reach. When we accept this, we stop punishing ourselves for circumstances that are not failures but lessons, and we stop punishing others for being human, for being imperfect, for being limited. True growth requires courage to face reality honestly. It requires humility to admit that we cannot always fix, change, or control. It requires wisdom to discern which battles are worth engaging and which are better left alone. Acceptance transforms pain into understanding, setbacks into learning, and endings into beginnings. When we stop resisting, we start observing. We begin to see patterns, triggers, and truths that were invisible under the haze of denial or frustration. We notice what nourishes us and what drains us, what aligns with our values and what does not. Acceptance becomes a lens through which we navigate life, one that guides decisions, strengthens resilience, and deepens self-awareness. Growth comes from acceptance because it teaches us to adapt without losing ourselves. It allows us to honor our boundaries while staying compassionate, to choose our path without trying to control others, and to act from clarity rather than emotion. Acceptance does not close doors, it opens the right ones. It shifts focus from what is lost to what can be gained, from regret to opportunity, from resistance to mastery. When we accept life as it is, we reclaim our power. We stop being victims of circumstance and start becoming architects of our experience. Acceptance is not passive. It is active, intentional, and transformative. It transforms fear into courage, chaos into clarity, and limitation into possibility. It is the foundation of emotional maturity, the catalyst for wisdom, and the soil in which true growth flourishes. Without acceptance, every step forward is weighed down by the burden of denial. With acceptance, every step becomes purposeful, grounded, and free. To grow, we must first accept, and in that acceptance, we discover the strength, clarity, and freedom to become who we are meant to be. At the end of the day, the man who leaves calmly, the one who refuses to be controlled, teaches us more than words ever could. He reminds us that strength is not loud, that power is not possession, and that true freedom comes from within. Calmness is not weakness, it is mastery. Detachment is not coldness, it is respect for oneself. Control is an illusion, and silence often speaks louder than any argument. Leaving is not failure. It is a choice rooted in clarity, courage, and self-worth. Drama is rarely about the moment. It is a mirror of fear, reflecting what we refuse to face. Presence matters far more than possession, and growth is born not from resistance, but from acceptance. When we embrace these truths, we begin to understand life differently. We stop chasing what cannot be caught, stop forcing what cannot be controlled, and stop compromising the peace that belongs to us. We learn to honor boundaries, to act with intention, to respond rather than react, and to walk away when necessary without guilt or shame. The lesson is clear. No one can control a soul that knows its worth. No one can manipulate a heart that values peace over approval, and no one can shake a mind that has mastered calm. In the end, the calm exit, the deliberate choice, the unwavering presence, they are not just actions, they are statements. They say, I am enough, I am free. I will not be moved by chaos, and I will not be diminished by the attempts of others to control me. That is the strength that cannot be broken, the power that cannot be stolen, and the freedom that cannot be taken. And when we witness it, we are reminded that true control belongs only to the one who knows themselves fully, who honors their boundaries, and who walks through life with quiet confidence, clarity, and courage.